Poopies, it's Kaylee. I'm not really sure about this video or how it's gonna go. I guess this is a vlog. I could consider it a vlog, but if you follow me on any of my social media, like my Instagram or my Twitter, you may know already that my holiday, my Christmas this year was kind of tough on me because I spent it alone with my family. I kind of have a tough relationship with my family. I don't talk about it a lot, but the way I ended up leaving Alabama was I was 20 years old. I was still living with my parents because my parents didn't want to let me get my own place or go to college, and yeah, there was like lots of weird controlling issues with my parents, and so I ended up like just jumping on a bus and leaving for Michigan without telling anyone. So that kind of says a lot about my relationship with my family, with my parents in particular. They're very controlling, very overbearing, very negative people. And it took several years, but I felt like our relationship had gotten better with distance, if that makes any sense. Over the years, for the first couple months I lived in Michigan, I refused to contact them or speak to them at all. But over time we started talking again. We kind of, you know, came to an understanding. I don't think they fully understood why I left or why I felt so strongly about leaving. I think they just chalked it up to me, you know, like being bad or rebellious or whatever. They didn't really want to take any ownership in how their behavior affected me, and you know, how they were kind of trying to control and infantilize their adult daughter. Like, I don't think they really understood or really wanted to understand that, and it took me a long time to get over my anger over that and kind of come to terms with it. But anyway, I'm kind of going off subject and just ranting about my relationship with my family, but I feel like it's important to have some background, because the main reason I wanted to film this video was because I spent this past Christmas with my family alone. Originally my husband Rob was supposed to come with me and we were going to visit my family together. And this was the first time we were going to visit them. It had been about 2, almost 3 years since I've visited my family or seen my family, and it had been even longer for him. I think maybe like 4 years or something. So I kind of felt like we were due for a visit, you know, and stuff came up with his work, so he wasn't able to get time off, like the time period we needed. And I had already promised my family that I was going to come visit them this year, so I felt like I couldn't really back out of it and say, you know, I really want to stay here and spend Christmas with my husband. I don't want to spend Christmas apart. I felt like I was kind of obligated at that point, so I went ahead and went down to visit alone. And it was a lot harder, and I don't know, it was kind of like a really, I don't want to say bad experience, but it was just very eye-opening, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. And maybe, I don't know, like I said, this is kind of a vlog where I'm just talking about myself, but I felt like my experience might be helpful to anyone else out there who maybe was going through something similar or has, I don't know. I know I made my whole video about how to survive, like, you know, body shaming and diet culture and stuff during the holidays. And I tried to follow my own advice a lot, but it is hard. It is very hard. And being in that experience again made me realize that. So in the years, I haven't really been visiting with my family. I mostly keep in contact through talking to my mom, like every, you know, couple weeks or whatever, like I'll talk to my mom on the phone. And honestly, of all the relationships in my family, my mom's, I used to have the most difficult relationship with my mom growing up. I definitely have mommy issues, caused by like her neglect and her treatment of me. But honestly, I think our relationship is probably like pretty good. Like I definitely have a much friendlier relationship with my mom. I'm still very guarded around her. I don't trust her with anything very deep or very important to me, but I feel like we can be the most civil and friendly out of any of my family, if that makes sense. And because of that, because I've been away from my family for years and I've only been having like these kind of pretty nice friendly interactions with my mom over the phone, I think it caused me to forget a little bit about what my family was like and what it was like living with them and how toxic they can be and how much it can wear on my mental health being around them all the time. And I was just kind of remembering these like idealized memories I have of my family, like the good times we've had together, like the joking and, you know, remembering sweet things my dad did for me as a little kid and things like that. And so when I got to Alabama and I don't know, it's just being around my family again. I just remembered it was like, oh yes, I remember this. I remember, you know, this family member having to comment negatively on how everyone around them looks all the time and why I thought, you know, I was the ugliest, fattest thing to ever live growing up because everyone around me was like so super critical of everyone else's looks, especially women. Like, no matter how you know, unkempt a man may be, like his appearance isn't commented on, but if there's a woman within, you know, like 100 miles, she's gonna get commented on, and more than likely it's gonna be disapprovingly. Just like, I don't know, all this just really toxic shit that was really negative and just made me feel bad being around these people and feeling bad that I was there and I was on my own, and I just kept kind of thinking I left my loving husband and his loving family and like my loving home behind to go sit in this like toxic waste dump basically and just have really negative toxic shit dumped all over me all day every day. And I was staying at my parents' house and they're basically like the biggest homebody people you can ever imagine. They don't like to go out except to go out to eat and to visit other family members. So that was my life growing up. I never got to go anywhere, do anything except go out to eat with family and go visit family. And that was my experience there. It was just like a really weird, eye-opening experience of making me remember in a really in a really negative way what it felt like to be, you know, 16, 17, 18, 19, up to the age of 20, to where I just couldn't handle it anymore. And it may sound really petty to like other people. Like my family wasn't horribly abusive to me. Like there were times where they hit me or, you know, verbally abused me, but it wasn't like a constant thing. It wasn't like I was constantly being, you know, assaulted or abused, which I know other people are in that situation, and I wasn't even constantly being verbally abused or anything like that. I'm not saying like I had such a terrible life, but it was getting out of the situation and seeing how other people's lives are, seeing how other people were raised, made me realize how stunted my upbringing was and how I don't know how fucked up my situation was, I guess, in comparison. Like I said, I wasn't abused and beaten all the time, but I was surrounded by negative talk all the time. Like, I think the only compliment I ever received from my family in my entire life was that I had nice eyebrows. And all the other times it was, you know, criticizing me, my weight, telling me what I needed to fix, what I needed to change, and no one would ever love me, no one would ever date me unless I changed these things, and I would be miserable and my life would never start until I changed these things. And just like not letting me, that's something else I've kind of noticed about my parents, and that kind of struck me with this most recent visit, is how paranoid and just frightened of life they are, to the point where I feel kind of bad for them. Because, you know, a normal parent worries about their child. They do. They're concerned about them. And Rob and his mom will like worry about me too. Like if they know I'm going somewhere by myself, or if I'm coming home late at night from something, they'll tell me to be careful, or they'll tell me, you know, to call them if they need anything. That's normal. But my parents will like so worried, like unreasonably, like they were horrified and terrified that I was going to be driving to visit them by myself, and that I was going to be driving home by myself, like without a male chaperone. Oh heavens. Like not taking into consideration that, you know, I've been driving around sometimes really late at night by myself for years and years. And in fact, I drove myself all the way to North Carolina by myself. Like, you know, it's like, I think I know how to do this by now. And yeah, bad things happen and you can't take account for it, but you can't live your life like in crippling fear of something that might happen. And that's kind of how they are. And I kind of didn't realize how bad it was until this most recent visit, and them just telling me over and over again that, oh, I wish Rob was here with you to drive you back, and be very, very careful, because if you pull over and you get out of the gas station, someone might assault you, someone might attack you. You're a woman traveling alone. Like, predators look for victims like that. And I'm not saying that any of that isn't true, but it just seemed way over the top of the normal amount of concern I would expect someone to have. And it also, again, it's that whole thing where it makes me feel very condescended to, like they don't believe in me, like they don't trust that I'm a capable adult. And it just made me feel kind of mad and sad and invalidated. And I remember that's kind of how I felt my whole life growing up with them, was just very small, very unseen, unheard, invalidated. Like no one in my family really knew who I was, because no one ever really talked to me or got to know me. They just cared that like my physical body was there and safe, and that was all they really cared about. They didn't care about getting to know me or understanding my feelings or my thoughts or anything. During this particular visit, I became acutely reminded of that, because everybody in my family is pretty bad about it, but especially my dad. Like, they will just cut me off in mid-sentence. Like, you can't really have a conversation with my family. Like, they will ask you a question, and as you start to respond, something you're responding with will trigger them to like remember something or want them to say something, and then they will just cut you off. And if you try to keep talking, they will just talk louder over you. And that's really annoying. And I forgot I forgot that was a thing and how much I hated it. And eventually, over, you know, the first few times that happens, I just stopped talking. I just kind of gave short one-word answers like, yep, no. And I think my family thought I was like really angry or sulky or something, and I probably was a little bit, but it was mainly just because I didn't want to have to deal with that frustration of being cut off all the time. I did have a family member who was a patriarch of the family who abused me for years. I don't really want to go into the details of that for obvious reasons, but fortunately he is dead now. He's gone, but I guess the person I knew doesn't line up with the person my family remembers. They remember him as a good person, and they talk about him reverently a lot. And that is, and I never told my family about the abuse, mainly because I felt like they wouldn't believe me. And secondly, because, I don't know, I felt like nothing good would come of me telling them, that either they would not believe me and excommunicate me or something, or they would, I don't know, it would cause pain to all the family members that seem to like love him and idolize him so much. So maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong, I don't know, but that's how I chose to deal with it. I kind of bit the bullet on that one and was like, well, I'll take one for the team and keep all this horrible abuse and stuff that I suffered inside and keep it to myself and just let them have their idealized image of this family member. But that was another thing that was really hard on me, was, you know, every so often during my visit hearing what a great person my abuser was and how missed he is. So yeah, it was a really rough trip, and I think what I learned from this is, in a way, I was kind of grateful for the experience, even though it was a terrible Christmas and I really didn't enjoy much of any of my time there. I've on top of all this, dealing with my family and them and like getting on my nerves and just really deteriorating my mental health, I also found out about like crazy family drama that I didn't know about, which I won't go into, but kind of pissed me off. And I don't know, I'm honestly like really glad to be back home and be like away from it. But I think what I learned was it reminded me so much of what my life was like and how I felt being a very young person living with my parents and all the shit I went through and why I left in the first place. And I think it was very important for me to remember that, because I kind of forget sometimes, and my life is good, so good now, and it's so full of love and supportive people that I sometimes forget that that's not where I came from. And it also made me realize maybe there's some stuff I still need to work through. Like I said, this was the first time I really realized how paranoid and fearful my family is, and how there's this cloud of like fear hanging over them that is kind of keeping them from living life, and maybe reflecting on how that's affecting me, and you know, if that's something else maybe I need to work through. But I am safe and I'm back home and I'm happy, and I'm happy. I was so happy to see my kitties and my husband and my in-laws and everybody who are so sweet and supportive. And yeah, I'm just really happy that the visit's over and I'm back home. I've had some people tell me I should just cut my family out of my life, period. I don't really want to do that, just because, like I said, I can have some nice, pleasant interactions with them sometimes. But, and I think that's important. And I also know that they truly do love me. They aren't the most mature or emotionally intelligent people. They don't really understand me or my needs like at all, but I do understand that they love me on some level, and I think that accounts for something. And I don't want to completely throw that away, but I do think I need to limit my exposure to them as much as possible. So me and my husband have kind of come up with a game plan where in the future when we visit them, we will, you know, always get a hotel, and that way we can kind of control our exposure, like go to dinners with them, like have little visits or whatever, but then we can, you know, escape back to our hotel if we need to, if it becomes too much. And I think that's a really good idea. But yeah, sorry this is so long and kind of rambly. I didn't have anything written down or anything. I just wanted to like talk to you guys openly and honestly about how I'm feeling, and how like I've been kind of like this weird, I was on this weird like emotional roller coaster I wasn't expecting to be on during the holidays, and my holidays didn't turn out very good at all. So and I also wanted to just kind of let anyone else know out there, if you have a family that you have very complicated relationships with, it's fine. I'm right in there with you. I know a lot of people who either have great relationships with their families, like everything's, at least on the surface, everything's fine. You know, everybody's a big, loving, happy family. And then I know people who, for various reasons, are completely cut off from their family. Like they don't talk to them at all anymore, and they just have like their chosen family. And both of those are fine and very valid, but I just kind of want to put this out there and represent people like me who have much more complex, complicated relationships with their family. Like maybe sometimes they have that nice, you know, loving, happy family, but a lot of the time it can be very toxic and very hurtful and just unpleasant and cause you anxiety to be around. And maybe you don't want to cut yourself off completely because you feel like a lot of it is unintentional, or it's just like differences of outlook and opinion and, you know, just kind of ignorance on their part. But, you know, that shit still hurts, and you don't have to put up with it if you don't want to. But you do still kind of want to be there for when the times are good, and you do share like loving time together, if that makes any sense. But yeah, sending lots of love out to you spoopies, no matter what your familial situation is. What is your familial situation? Are you completely cut off? Do you have a great family that you love? Is some of it okay, some of it's not so okay? Or do you have like a really like maddening, complicated relationship with your family like I do? Let me know in the comments down below. And thank you all so much for watching. I know this probably isn't the most fun video to watch, so I appreciate you watching it. I really do. And if you haven't already and you'd like to, please feel free to subscribe and join my coven of beautiful spoopies. And as always, remember everyone that you are beautiful just the way you are, and to always be yourself. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.